Good afternoon, respected professors and friends. I am Souvik Pasak, fourth year undergraduate student of the Department of Mechanical Engineering, IIT Kharagpur. Today I will present my talk on the topic of monopile depth sizing of fixed offshore wind turbines on Indian territorial waters, dynamic analysis of towers under wind and ocean load. This talk is based on my work under the supervision of Professor N. Datta. These are the contents of the presentation. First, I will introduce you all to the big picture, which is followed by the motivation and objective of the project. Then I will formulate the problem, which is followed by the loads. The loads are categorized into steady and dynamic loads. Then I will discuss the analysis methodology that I have used in this project. Then I will discuss the results, which are categorized into quasi-static response, free vibration and parametric study, and dynamic response. Then I will end this presentation with important design considerations and summary points. In today's world, climate change is a big problem due to the fact that increased use of fossil fuels since the industrial revolution. This is why many countries are switching to renewable energy to reduce pollution. There are many sources of renewable energy. Wind energy is one of them. For wind energy, we can use both onshore and offshore wind energy. Horizontal axis wind turbines are the most commercially viable option for wind energy. Let us look at the power capacity of our country, India. We have a total installed capacity of 412 gigawatts, out of which 10% comprises of the wind energy. India has a target of 140 gigawatts by the year 2030. Therefore, India is in a position to look into options for both onshore and offshore wind turbines. Now for the motivation of offshore wind turbines, clearly offshore wind turbines experiences higher wind speed as compared to onshore wind turbines. More importantly, the power generated is of higher quality and stable power since there are low turbulence on the ocean surface, because there are less obstruction as compared to the onshore structure. Moreover, wind turbines are known for generating noises which are harmful for human and fauna. Hence, the offshore wind turbines which are situated in remote places will not cause any noise pollution among these. But offshore wind turbines requires large investments and technical expertise. Moreover, India has a huge potential for offshore wind turbines since it has a coastline of around 7,500 kilometers. The eastern coast of India is more prone to annual cyclones. Therefore, offshore wind turbines are better suited for the western side of India. Now, for the aim and objective of this paper, the aim of this paper is to structurally analyze the monopile tower of an offshore wind turbine which is suitable for Indian territorial waters based on all kinds of loads acting on the tower using analytical and semi-analytical approaches. The objective of this paper is to provide a simple methodology for estimating the structural design consideration for a monopile tower of the offshore wind turbine, leading to the cost estimates and feasibility assessment at the very initial stages of the design itself. We have chosen the location of the Gulf of Kutch, which is located north of the industrial city of Jamnagar, Gujarat. It experiences a design speed of 9 meters per second and has a water depth of approximately 40 meters. It has a current speed of around 0.8 meters per second and we have used a maximum wind speed of 75 meters per second for our static analysis of this work. Then let's come to the literature review. In 2004, Ocello and Arcleano proposed a solution for the dynamic response of actually loaded non-uniform Timoshenko beams using Rayleigh-Ritz method and compared the results with numerical solutions. Then this idea is extended by Wu and Shu, where they have included the submerged weight and also the rotary inertia of tip mass. Then Ankit and N. Datta proposed the idea of critical depth for monopile optimization of offshore wind turbines. In 2016, Fezwala Zagia studied the dynamics of the offshore wind turbines with the help of data collected from sensors which are placed at different parts of the wind turbine. Now let's formulate the problem. We have used a rated power of around 1 megawatts, which gives us a swept area of around 4,572.24 meters square. This in turn gives us a length of blade of around 40 meters. The dry height is taken to be double of the length of blade, which is 80 meters. The monopile depth depends on the soil characteristics, which are stiffness and damping. And obviously the monopile depth depends on the external loads, which are wind, waves, current, turbulence, gust, vortex shadings and earthquakes. Now we need to develop a model for our analysis. For our model, we have calculated the mass of the nacelle to be around 1.316 into 10 to the power 5 kgs, which was calculated from the empirical relation between mass of the nacelle and the power generated of the turbine. Then we have calculated the total tower length to be around 145 meters, which is the summation of the dry length, the water depth and the assumed monopile depth. The assumed monopile depth is taken to be 25 meters, which is around 30% of the total tower length. The minimum outer diameter is taken to be 6 meters, which is due to the fact that the tower should not buckle under the load of the tip mass, and the soil is modeled as parallel springs with constant stiffness of around 1.5 into 10 to the power 9 Newton per meter per meter. The beam is modeled as Euler-Bernoulli beam because the effective diameter to the total length ratio is less than 1 by 20. Hence, we can safely assume pure bending of the beam. Now coming on to the load section of our work, here I am starting with the steady loads, which are categorized into extreme wind load and current load. The extreme wind load causes extreme static deflection and the current load causes quasi-static deflection. The current velocity varies as a logarithmic function along the submerged length of the tower. Now for dynamic loads, we have turbulence and fatigue loading, which causes inflow dynamic responses and random vibration. Then we have gust loading, which causes transient vibration. Then we have vortex induced vibration, which causes cross flow oscillation at vortex shading frequency. Then we have waves, which causes inflow random oscillations. Now first we will start off analyzing the turbulence and fatigue loading. As previously mentioned, in offshore regions the obstructions are very less as compared to the onshore region. Hence the turbulent intensity is around 7%. Hence we can safely ignore the turbulence and fatigue loading for offshore structures. Now coming to gust loading, we can see the gust factor also depends on the turbulent intensity. As previously mentioned, the turbulent intensity is very less, hence we can also safely ignore the effects of gust loading. Now coming to vortex induced vibration. For vortex induced vibration, alternate vortex shading requires the Reynolds number to be around 10 to the power 4 to 10 to the power 6. We have calculated the Reynolds number for both the current and winds, and we have found for current the Reynolds number is around 6229, and for wind the Reynolds number is around 4.045 into 10 to the power 6. Hence we can see that these numbers are falling outside the required range. Hence we can safely ignore the effects of vortex induced vibrations as well. Now coming to the wave loads. The wave loads are modeled using Frucht-Kirchhoff forces. The significant wave height is calculated based on the Pearson-Moskowitz spectrum, which is plotted in this graph. From the graph, we can clearly see that the maxima is occurring at a frequency of around 0.95 radians per second. For a design wind speed of 9 meters per second, we are in a C state of 5 according to Beaufort scale. Hence, from Beaufort scale, we have got the significant wave height to be around 2.5 meters. Now coming on to the static analysis of this work. This is the governing differential equation for static analysis, where the right hand side effects consist of the ocean current loads, mean extreme wind loads and soil reaction forces. The wind forces and current forces are modeled using these two equations as shown here. For stiffness of this spring, it is modeled as a discontinuous function of x, where it is equal to kt, a constant value, when x is less than the embedded length, and is equal to 0 when x is greater than embedded length. After putting all those values in the main governing differential equation, we get a differential equation that looks like this. This equation is solved by the MATLAB solver. Now coming on to the free vibration, the governing differential equation of free vibration of a partially submerged, partially embedded, non-uniform, axially loaded cantilever beam with a tip mass is shown here. Here the first three terms comprises of the inertial forces due to the mass of the tower, the tip mass and the added mass. Then the other three terms comprises the stiffness of the tower. The transverse dynamic displacement of the tower is expressed as a summation of product of mode shape and its corresponding principal coordinate. The mode shape is in turn expressed as a weighted summation of admissible function shown here. The admissible function chosen for this work is the mode shapes of an uniform cantilever beam that are plotted in this graph. Now coming on to the Rayleigh-Ritz method. Rayleigh-Ritz method is an energy-based method which works on the principle of minimizing the natural frequency, which is a function of maximum potential energy given by Umax and maximum kinetic energy given by Tmax. After putting all those values in the equation, we get this matrix. Equating the determinant of this matrix to 0, we will get the natural frequencies of the tower, and putting each of the natural frequencies in this matrix, we will get the values of the coefficient. Therefore, we are in a position to calculate the mode shapes of the non-uniform beam that are expressed as a weighted summation of the mode shape of admissible functions. Now for dynamic response, the governing differential equation looks similar to that of the free vibration. The right hand side consists of the external forcing. As previously mentioned, the external forcing is modeled using Fruit-Kiln of force as given here. I have also plotted the magnitude of the Fruit-Kiln of force as a function of x in this graph. We can see that this force exists only between 25 and 65 meters, since this is the submerged length of the tower. Here, similarly, here also the transverse displacement is expressed as a summation of product of mode shapes and its principal coordinates. Now coming to mode summation method, first the governing differential equation is converted into modal space, where the first three terms are mass matrix and the second three terms are stiffness matrix as shown here. The right hand side forcing is converted to generalized force matrix as shown here. Now we can easily find the principal coordinates by taking the inverse of this matrix as shown here. Now once we have the principal coordinates, we are in a position to find the transverse displacement, which is a function of position and time. Now coming on to the result section, first I will analyze the quasi-static responses, which includes the tip displacement, bending moment and shear stress versus monopile depth. Then I will move on to free vibration analysis, where I will compare the natural frequencies and its corresponding mode shapes. Then I will present a convergence study and a parametric study. Then I will move on to dynamic responses, where I will first compare the generalized force, which is followed by principal coordinates. Then I will use these principal coordinates to compare the dynamic displacement, bending stress and shear stress. Now these are the results for quasi-static responses. In the first graph, we can see the displacement curve, which gives us a tip displacement of around 83 centimeters. The second graph, we get a maximum bending stress of around 118 megapascal, which is observed at the mud line, and it is operating. We are operating at a safety factor of around 2.5. Then in the last two curves, I have given the maximum shear stress, which is coming at around 56 megapascal, which is observed below the mud line, and we are operating at a safety factor of 2.5. Now these are the results for our free vibration. First, I have tabulated all the results for convergence study. You can see the natural frequencies when I have taken the value of number of admissible function to be 6, the fourth natural frequency have converged. Hence, we can safely conclude that when we are taking n frequency, the n admissible function, the n minus 1s frequency converges. Hence, for this study, I have taken 4 natural frequencies of the tower and 5 admissible functions. I have plotted the four mode shapes of the non-uniform beam here. We can clearly see the effect of the addition of spring, since in the embedded length the displacements are very less due to the fact that they are surrounded by stiff springs. Then we will move on to the parametric study. In the first graph, I have given the variation of natural frequencies with water depth. As water depth increases, the natural frequency decreases. This is due to the fact that the net mass is increasing. Then I have given the variation of natural frequencies with respect to monopile depth. Here is one interesting point to note, is that at low monopile depth, the natural frequencies decreases, as we can see here, but at monopile depth after 20 meters the natural frequencies increases. This is due to the fact that low monopile depth, the addition of monopile depth, the factor that the mass increases dominates, but after the 20 meters the addition of springs, that is it increases the stiffness of the system, this factor dominates. Now for soil stiffness, this is very clear that once we increase the soil stiffness, the natural frequency increases. Now moving on to the dynamic responses of the tower. In the first graph, I have plotted the generalized forcing curves, and one interesting thing to note here is that the second generalized force is highest. This is due to the fact is that the integration is happening over a certain length, that is from 25 to 65 meters, and not on the overall length. But the principal coordinates we are getting highest for first principal coordinates only. Now using these principal coordinates, I have given the mesh plots for dynamic displacement, dynamic bending stress, and dynamic shear stress. We can clearly see, similar to quasi-static and free vibration, we can clearly see the effect of the addition of springs, since the displacements are very less in the embedded length. Now moving on to the maximum displacement, maximum shear stress, and maximum bending stress, you can clearly see the tip displacement to be around 13.9 mm. The maximum bending stress and maximum shearing stress are working in a huge safety factor. This is very much expected since the offshore wind turbines needed to have such safety factor, and they are expected to run for a longer period of time without replacement, since they require huge technical skills and lots of investment. Now coming on to the most important part of this work, that is the design consideration. The first point to note is that the largest bending stress and shear stress are caused by the extreme wind loads. Now, change in the monopile depth is seen not to affect the natural frequencies of this tower significantly. The third point is that dynamic responses are much lower than the extreme quasi-static stresses. Fourth is that the tower structure is designed stiff enough to resist the dynamic loads due to the ocean waves, and also to operate within the endurance limit of the material. Then the fifth point is the tower design can be modified to reduce vortex-induced vibration, and also to avoid the 1P and 3P frequencies of the tower. And the last and the most important point is that the soil should be able to provide the sufficient restoring moment to withstand the extreme wind overturning moment. From quasi-static analysis, we can easily get the displacement of the soil as a function of monopile depth as well. Here I have plotted the variation of soil displacement for different monopile depths. Now, to summarize my work, this work represents a practical case study of the optimization of the monopile depth of a wind turbine by considering all kinds of loads, and also a comparison is given of all kinds of loads to see whether which load is of prime importance. Now, we have concluded that it is the extreme wind loads that causes the maximum stress, thereby influencing the structural design of the tower. Then we move on to then I have given the Rayleigh-Ritz method, which can give quick estimates of the natural frequencies of the tower at the very early stages of the design. And the most important point of this work is that it provides a good estimate for a ballpark range of the monopile depth, which is obtained without the need of any extensive finite element analysis. And the last point is that this whole concept and design can be useful for making early project decisions and cost estimates that can even be carried out into subsequent design phases. These are some of the references that I have used for this work. Thank you for your attention.